What is going on, everybody? This is episode 62 of Stats Over Politics. You are welcomed by your guy, Kevin Dent, and my guy, Jaevon Toddy. Garry and Shaun have to work, so they will not be here. But like I was telling Toddy, man, all roads lead back to Kevin and Toddy. So, Toddy, how are you doing this night or this evening? How you doing?
Well, I'm feeling. We got a parlay pending right now. We're halfway down. We got 6 legs on there. The Kings had a miraculous cover at the end. I almost pulled my hair out, but you got to know what you're dealing with these bigger spreads. But the Kings have been looking pretty good lately. So, from me not being a Kings fan, Kev always giving me shit about it. I was actually rooting for the Kings tonight. So, feeling all right. Feeling anxious.
Yeah, man. You wanna go ahead and let us know what's on that parlay?
Oh boy, what's on it? Okay. A little bit of hockey is on there.
Ooh, okay.
I got Winnipeg Jets -1, Anaheim Ducks -1. I had the Sixers -1, and they won by like 12 against who they play, Atlanta. Had the Kings -8.5 by the grace of Jesus Christ. Kevin Herter, who said he doesn't care about your parlays. He cared tonight.
He cared tonight.
He put not all heroes wear capes. I got Phoenix -5. They're looking pretty strong right now. That's the first quarter. And then to cap it all off, we have the Houston Rockets over the Clippers money line. That's +225.
Ooh, damn. So, it's funny how you picked all the teams we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. The Rockets have won 6 straight. So they've been looking really good. The Rockets have won 6 straight, and the Clippers have lost 6 straight or 7 straight. Something crazy. So we'll definitely be getting into that.
Definitely. And I'm feeling good, man. It's a Friday. Kings just got the W. We were able to watch it. I was letting Toddy know that we should start the pod early because for some reason, like you would have thought it was my first time watching the NBA game, and I didn't see the Eastern time. I said, Toddy, Kings play at 7:30. We got to figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
And I was at work today, and I was like, Kings game started.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I was like, my dumbass. I'm over here about to bend all my limbs as far as I can to see if we can make this work. And we were both able to watch the Kings game. So we got a lot of people in the comments. So one of our, I guess you can call her a co-host now. She's been on enough episodes. She's like, man, they're in this little gray area of guests. So Alex, for the audio only listeners, Alex said, let's get it. We have Toddy's girl soaps. Have a good show, guys. And my dad coming in saying Clippers have a problem.
Let's go Rockets.
All reliable. Uncle Manny coming through for us. So, Toddy, I'm going to swing it to you first. What were some of the things that stuck out to you in this week of the NBA?
Let me dive into my notes. Kev got me taking notes now because they'll send me the rundown earlier in the week and be like, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about. So 2 things that stood out to me, I would say just on a broader scale, I'll just say the Timberwolves, just as a team, I think they went on before a couple of nights ago when they lost to, I forgot who they lost to previously. But they went on a 7-game win streak, and that was like the first time since like 03-04 when they went to the Western Conference Finals, when KG was winning the MVP. This was before Kevin Garnett was saying anything is possible. This is pre-anything is possible KG when he was winning MVPs with the Timberwolves. But that was the first time since then that the Timberwolves were winning that won 7 straight. Ant's averaging 26, 6, and 5. And he just gave the Warriors a 30-piece not too long ago, talking smack to Draymond. I'm pretty sure we'll get to the Timberwolves pretty soon. But Rudy Gobert has been an anchor. He's looking like the defensive player of the year standout so far. averaging 12 rebounds and 2.3 blocks, so almost 3 blocks a game. But he's not really there to score, as we all know. When we first heard that trade of Rudy Gobert getting traded for all of those first round picks and players, the world pretty much shut down, and everybody was like, I can't believe Rudy Gobert went for this, that, and the third. But pretty much they don't really need any more guys to score because they have Anthony Edwards for that, and obviously Karl Anthony Towns. So they needed a rim protector, and that's pretty much what Rudy Gobert is there to do: clean the glass and block shots, protect the paint, and alter shots. I know that's not really a stat that shows up on the stat sheet, but being able to alter shots and protect the paint and forcing missed layups is a huge deal for this team. And I think they're the number 1 rated defensive team in the league, if I'm not mistaken.
And anyone else?
Another standout. This is more of a player. I'd say is Tyrese Halliburton. Now I know a bunch of Kings fans are very familiar of who and what he is capable of being able to do. But he's been thriving in Indianapolis or in Indiana, and just kind of been the guy that he needs to be. Now, I think a lot of guys kind of go back and forth on who won the trade. It's not really much on who won the Kings trade or who won the trade between the Kings and the Pacers. It's more kind of a win-win situation. The Kings got their all-star in Domantas Sabonis, who did ball out. I think he had like 28 points tonight. And Tyrese Halliburton's been averaging 24 and 12 for this Pacers team and been looking like one of the top PGs in the league. And that included a game last night or 2 nights ago where he dropped 33 and 15 against the Sixers, who are one of the better teams in the NBA. And I think this Pacers team is a team that I kind of talked about a little bit during the pregame show. We're going to keep referring back to the pregame show because we'll be like, I told you so. Don't remember what we said.
Keep receipts
before the season started. But at the same time, we're probably going to have to keep up with kind of the misses that we had. Myself, I had the Timberwolves. I did not have the Timberwolves on any playoff slip list or anything playoff in the Timberwolves. I completely whiffed on. That was a team that I wasn't as high on, but they have been playing extremely well, like one of the better teams in the NBA, if not the Western Conference. So those will probably be my 2 things I'd say that stood out in the NBA this week. Although there's probably been a ton of things, I'm pretty sure Kevin has some other things that he would definitely like to get off his chest as well.
Yeah, so for my this week's in the NBA, they came this morning. I was at work doing my thing, and I get a Chris Haynes report saying that Russell Westbrook has told the Clippers he would like to come off the bench. Yeah. We all know that the Clippers have made this big-time trade for James Harden, and they have yet to win a single game. I'm sure you guys all see Twitter. You all see all the clips of Ivan Zubac mad as hell on the bench when they're playing this small ball lineup. You see Paul George and Kawhi trying to guard the Joker, and they're just getting beat up every game. So they have a lot of things going on there. So, Russell Westbrook to come in here and put his ego aside is what this team might have needed. That you have 4 big egos, like Ty Lue said. This is going to be the hardest coaching job of my career. Just dealing with so many egos. You're dealing with a former MVP, 2 former MVPs, a former scoring champ. You got Kawhi Leonard, the 2-time Finals MVP, and you got Paul George. So they just have a lot of egos there, and they just kind of got to figure things out. But another big thing that I said that really stood out to me, we got to shout out to Garry, man. Bam Adebayo. These last 4 games with Tyler Hero out, 24 points a game, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block. The Heat are on a 7-game winning streak. The last time Toddy and I were together on the NBA podcast, we were just talking shit about the Heat. Are they washed? Everyone writes these narratives, and I was saying that this was one of the biggest disappointments early on in the season. They said, Kevin, watch this. So you know what, Miami Heat fans, I appreciate you guys tuning in and letting them know to check us out, and I'm happy that we're motivation for them because Bam Adebayo has been playing like a top 3 center so far. And another thing that I wanted to get at is this damn Phoenix Suns situation. In the like Heidi mentioned, we're going to refer to this preseason podcast before with all of our reactions. And I said I didn't know if I could really believe in the Suns. Just the health. And we've seen Devin Booker, we've seen Bradley Beal, we've seen Kevin Durant all deal with their own fair share of injuries. But for Kevin Durant to be the 3rd highest in minutes in the NBA behind guys like Tyrese Maxey and Cade Cunningham, those guys are 22, 23 years old. They can go out there and play 40 minutes. Kevin Durant with his injury history, like I mentioned, It's not good. His last 5 games, he's averaging 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Devin Booker's only played 3 games. Tonight is his first time playing in consecutive games. And he's, like I said, he's only played 3 games. Bradley Beal's only played 3 games. And it just came out today that he's going to miss up to 3 weeks, and then he'll be re-examined. So this team had so much hype, so much anticipation. This team was built to be around a big 3, not a big 2. We saw how far this big 2 can take them, and it was the Western Conference Finals, and they just got burnt out against the Nuggets. So Kevin Durant playing these big minutes is not really a good sign. So I'm interested to see how this kind of turns out. Like I said, Bradley Beal is going to miss some games, but Devin Booker is playing this consecutive game for the first time this year. So hopefully he can stay on the straight and narrow and kind of be that point guard for them. So that's one of the biggest things that I took away from this last week. And Toddy, we are now going to get to the Houston Rockets 6-game winning streak. What were your biggest takeaways from this team and the winning streak?
I think it's kind of just a mesh of. I think Ime Udoka has a big part of it. Like, I don't know if people really thought that they were going to kind of just roll over and die. I think that's kind of what most people thought would be same old Rockets. To start the season out, they got blown out by 30 points. I think it was to Orlando. And everybody was like, oh, there it is. See? You know the little Shannon Sharp meme where he just like, and he's like pointing. So
yeah.
It kind of is just like, okay, well, let's see if these, Jalen Green, he was a top 2 pick. He's kind of the guy. Fred VanVleet has been a guy who's been shooting the ball pretty well. I think he's been getting to the line a lot, shooting, I think in the 90s as far as free throw percentage goes. Jabari Smith Jr. is a guy that, me and you have been very critical of and, wanting to see more of. I didn't think he particularly played well. And that's kind of something that I highlighted. This is going back to the pregame show or the preseason show. We wanted to see more from Jabari Smith Jr. We saw glimpses in the summer league, but now I think you're kind of starting to see that his potential and what he could have been and, why he was, a top 3 pick. And another guy on this team that's been playing fairly well is Alperen Sengun.
Fairly is being generous.
Yeah, fairly. This team I think they were trying to sign Brook Lopez in the offseason, and a lot of people were thinking that Brook Lopez was going to come, and, Brook Lopez comes. This team would be probably a little bit better than they are now, but the development of Alperen Sengun would not be what it is now, and I think he's been playing with extreme confidence. He's been cleaning the glass really well. And I just think that this team is very young, and I feel like everything is meshing. A lot of don't want to forget our guy Dylan Brooks, who's been shooting the 3-ball extremely well, and a whole bunch of people in Memphis are kind of kicking they're kicking the
kicking the can, man.
They're punching the air right now, and they're kind of just like, well, why couldn't you do this for us? And, you were shooting all these shots, but I feel like now he's been shooting a little bit less, and he's been making, and his percentage went up. So. What I've pretty much been predicated on how far this team will go is how good Jalen Green can be. And I've said that he's a guy that probably has to average close to 25 points a game. I think he's averaging like 23. So it's fairly close to what my prediction was. But I just think that this team only goes as far as Jalen Green can take them. And I feel like he's going to be like the main force on why this team is good. Now, Ime Udoka is going to have a lot to do with their success, but I feel like you're going to have the players to kind of implement his system. And I feel like Jalen Green's been doing an exceptional job at that. And the Rockets are on a 6-game win streak, which is crazy, which has been insane. And, their last win was against the champs, against the Denver Nuggets. So I think right now they're playing the Clippers. So, Clippers are kind of been on a skid. So we'll see how that goes. But this Rockets team, I think they're 4th in the league right now. So, or fourth in the West. So, I mean, we'll see where or how long this will last. If this is just a weekly thing, a facade, like, oh, last week they won this many games in a row, but now they're on a 3-game skid, or are they just going to consistently keep winning games? And if they're going to be able to keep doing that, they could have a Kings type year, dare I say, last year. That's something
crazy.
I'm not saying 3 seed. I'm saying like a surprise playoff team that no one really expected. I had them at like 9th. So play-in was kind of where I had them. They could exceed expectation and kind of be a team like, hey, we could be 4 or 5 range and kind of just stay there. Like we're talking about teams that are likely to miss the playoffs. A team that I've been a caveat or pretty high on missing the playoffs is the Memphis Grizzlies. I think you were as well. And just based off of, injuries, suspensions, today we had another injury kind of go out, and we'll probably get into that a little later, is, Marcus Smart is going to be out for about 3 weeks. So it's just really basic math on just guys are missing games, who's playing and what does their lineup look like and how good can they actually be. So, like I said, this Rockets team, if they keep playing the way that they're playing, they could definitely make the playoffs.
I agree with you, man. And, I'm going to just go ahead and toot that horn for Alfred Sengun, man. He is playing like a top 4 center. You see the comparisons of the Joker and Sabonis, these point centers that can really do it all for them. And he has been balling. During this winning streak, he's averaging 20 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 1 steal. He leads the Rockets in points and rebounds, and he's second in assists. So, yeah, he might not be a rim protector, but he's doing everything else. And like Toddy mentioned, the teams that they beat the Hornets, they beat the Kings twice. Bad times. They beat the Lakers, the Pelicans, and the Nuggets. So this Rockets team
been playing both those games, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's obvious. I'm sure everybody knows that. But you gotta get. I didn't want to discredit them. They went out there and they beat the shit out of the Kings twice. Back-to-back games. That's huge. Like Toddy said, this was a team that the Kings were a playoff team, and the Pelicans, the Nuggets, the Lakers. These are all playoff teams that they're going up against and beating. So you gotta tip your hat to them. And, Toddy mentioned Ime Udoka and his impact. Let me give you a little bit more statistics. In the 2021 season, their defensive rating, 27th. 2021-22, 29th. 2023 or 2022-2023, 29th. This year, they're 5th in defense. So Ime Udoka is bringing the culture and making sure that we're not going to play guys just because you can score points. Like you got to play defense at some point because defense wins championships. And we saw in his 1 year in Boston the transformation they were able to take. So that's why Toddy and I are so high on this team. So it's really interesting to see them. They were one of the disappointments early on because they started off really, really bad. But to see them kind of turn things around is something that I'm really hoping for. I claimed, like Toddy, also that they were going to make a play-in push. So I'm got my fingers crossed for them. The Pistons aren't doing too hot. So like Toddy said, we will react to those takes later on down the year. So like Toddy mentioned, Marcus Smart's injury. He is expected to miss multiple weeks. And I believe it was an ankle injury.
Yeah.
So he's missing multiple weeks due to ankle injury. And I believe they only have 13 games left without Ja Morant. Derrick Rose has had his injury bug this year. So, Toddy, what are your thoughts on not only the Marcus Smart injury, but what this means to the Grizzlies with the remaining games without Ja Morant?
To kind of go back to what we were talking about before about the Rockets, I said Jalen Green was averaging 23, he's averaging 19. So a little bit of stat correction there. But as far as to go back to the whole Marcus Smart injury, left ankle injury, according to Shaun. Man, it's tough because your team is already kind of depleted. And it's like, okay, well, who else is going to score, rebound, assist, get steals? And, you had Ja Morant. You had, obviously, Desmond Bain, who's still playing. Jaren Jackson Jr., the defensive player of the year, the all-star, right? You would think that he would be the guy to step up in this situation and kind of be like, all right, no, like I'll be the anchor. I got it. But no, they're one of the worst teams in the league as we speak right now. So I don't know how many games or have the Grizzlies have played already. So, the Ja Morant suspension is, looming to an end, but still at the same time, when he does come back, it's going to be like, all right,
What is he coming back to?
What is he going to be coming back to? Is it going to be a beat up and battered, depleted team that they kind of already are? Or is, are they going to come back on a little bit of a win streak? Is Ja going to, are they going to have some momentum when Ja does end up coming back? So this Marcus Smart news wasn't the best for Grizzlies fans. I'm sure of that. But it's kind of just been, preach to a choir a little bit. It'll be like, hey, I told you. This is kind of what we saw going into the regular season. Like, hey, and this was Steven Adams was already out, and Ja was, obviously had the suspension. So I didn't think the Grizzlies would be this bad, without them. I thought they would kind of be able to maintain, maybe a 500-ish record, probably a little bit below 500, but the start that they've had has been pretty despicable. And there were all these stats last year of, the Grizzlies are this good. They're without Ja Morant, they're this record. They actually play better without Ja. And I'm like, that is nonsense. And I feel like Tyus Jones had a little bit to do with that, and he is now in Washington. So I feel like if they did have Tyus Jones, one of the better backup point guards of the league, as I've heard Kevin mention before, maybe this would be a little bit more sustainable, and they'd be able to kind of, steer the ship a little bit and navigate their way to, a 500-ish type record after that 25-game suspension for Ja Morant. But I feel like right now they're kind of just in no man's land and kind of all over the place. And, it's just, it sucks, man. And, I love Marcus Smart. And I feel like he can be, the heart and soul of a championship basketball team. But I don't expect him to kind of be the leader as far as, scoring points and, on the offensive side of the ball. He's more of a defensive minded guy, obviously, who can knock down a couple of threes in the span of 48 minutes. So this is definitely another big blow to this Grizzly team for sure.
Yeah, man. We talked about the Steven Adams, the Brandon Clark injuries, the Ja Morant suspension. And when you think about the Grizzlies, and like Toddy mentioned, the narrative the past 2 years was they can win without Ja Morant. Like Toddy mentioned, they had guys like Dylan Brooks and Tyus Jones on that team. And now Jaren Jackson, the former Defensive Player of the Year, the All-Star, you expected them to have to carry a load. And they just can't. And I know it's one thing to say it's injuries, but they're not even competitive. Like, they're losing to teams that are god awful. I remember last time we were on the pod, they lost to the Blazers in the play-in tournament. There's no reason you should lose to the Blazers. With Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson III, you should win again. You should that's one game you should win. The other games, I get it. That is one game you need to win. And they've also been known for developing young talent. And I hate to shit on the Cali guy, but Zaire Williams is a bust. They drafted him top out of Stanford. He went to Sierra Canyon. He had all the hype coming in, and they had this young team, but this young team is now getting older. And this young development talent isn't what it is. They have just failed back-to-back on wing picks. Like I mentioned, Zaire Wade, they went it for David Roddy. They're just not hitting on these picks. And when you're such a good team, you get these late picks, like we see with the Nuggets with Christian Braun and Julian Slaughter. You have to hit on those picks. You do not have the opportunity to miss, because the better you are, more money's going to come in, and people are going to want to get paid, so everybody can't stay. But we got to get to one of the comments. My father said, how can I change this Sacramento background? So, Toddy, we mentioned it. Sacramento Kings, 5-game winning streak. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 games. This Kings team is playing the level that we needed them to play at. And I'm going to dive into this first, Toddy. The last 5 games, we have seen the true emergence of Keegan Murray. He's averaging 17 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals on the defensive end, and he's guarding the best team's player. So for the Kings to really take that next big jump, like Toddy had him as one of his breakout players, if he can become that third star, this whole Kings dynamic changes. Sabonis, these last 5 games, 21 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, and 1 steal. And like Toddy mentioned during the monologue into the intro of the show, Kevin Huerter, last 5 games, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and shooting 50% from 3. I know 2 games of the winning streak were without De'Aaron Fox, but now that De'Aaron Fox is back in the mix, he's averaging 30 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. During this winning streak, they beat the Blazers, the Thunder, the Lakers, the Spurs. This team is playing phenomenal right now. Toddy, what are your thoughts from this Kings 5-game win streak?
I don't think it's a surprise as far as the win streak goes. I just think, they're missing their star player. I think it was pretty much simple plug and play. He makes those guys go. He kind of he is the engine for that team. Like Kev said, averaging 30 in that span. The span of the win streak is just insane. I think De'Aaron Fox is a top 5 point guard. Um, Maybe a little bit higher than that, just the way that he's been playing. I mean, he had 43 tonight. Um, I mean, the All Stars are playing like All Stars, like we saw tonight in the game. I think Sabonis had like 28 and 13. He's cleaning the glass, and Fox had 43. So it's just like when these guys are going, I think Malik Monk had 20 off the bench. So um, when you got guys like that playing at that level, and Herder, in the last couple of games, he's had like almost 230 balls. I think he scored 28 in both of those games. If Kevin Herter can give you that on a consistent basis, I'm not saying he has to score 30 every game, but I'm saying if he can get you 15, 16, 17 points a game, this Kings team is going to be tough to beat. And he's knocking down his threes. It's kind of just like everything's kind of falling into place. And in this offseason, a bunch of Kings fans were like, "Oh, how do we change the roster around? Or how are we going to make this team better?" And Monty McNair kind of just decided to run it back with this team. And, thinking about just having them another year under their belt and having playoff experience and being able to run this team back. I thought this team was good enough, and just made a couple of little bit of tweaks here and there. Adding a JaVale McGee, adding a Chris Duarte, and getting a Sasha to join the team from the Euro League. So it's just there weren't really any big changes to this team. I feel like the only big piece was, Harrison Barnes. Is he going to do a sign and trade, or are they going to go elsewhere? Were they going to sign Kyle Kuzma? That was a guy that I was kind of high on getting.
So you were the only one with that
there. But that was kind of like, those were kind of the guys that were out there. And, Monty McNair to roll this team back is just, it's looking pretty good. I think the Kings are going to be, one of the top teams in the West. I don't think last year was a facade. I think this team is actually really good. If De'Aaron Fox is playing like this, he could be the best point guard in the league. That's just point blank, period. The numbers don't lie. Kev, you can quote me on that. He's not better than Steph Curry. But I'm just saying, like, I'm talking about this year right now. The way that De'Aaron Fox is playing, it's out of this world.
Out of this world. And I know it's a basketball podcast, but Toddy, I'm watching the Colorado-Washington State game, and Shedeur just had a strip sack fumble for a touchdown. They're now down 14-0 in the first. So this is going to get ugly. But talking about the Kings, man, we talked about Fox being down, and Toddy just saying they were just missing their guys. With Fox this year, they're 4-1, averaging the third highest points per game at 127 and shooting 49% from the field. Without De'Aaron Fox, they're 2-3, 103 points, and they shoot 42% from the field. When De'Aaron Fox is able to get that three ball going, you really have no way to stop him because he's so quick. He's got to blow by you. He has a great floater, and his mid-range game is phenomenal. So I'm really happy as a Kings fan to see De'Aaron Fox back out there in the mix because, like
you guys said, trade away the wrong point. Is that still a thing? I was seeing that on Twitter. Our guy, shout out to Mr. IMK Diddy, Mr. Kenny Caraway on D-Lo and KC. I saw him kind of going back and forth with a bunch of guys on Twitter. It was like, oh, did we trade the wrong guy, Halliburton? Because obviously Halliburton has been, kind of going off in Indy. So I'm like, okay, well, yeah. Like I kind of mentioned it a little bit before in the podcast that, hey, it was kind of a win-win situation. I was like, well, De'Aaron has always kind of been the guy, even before, Halliburton got there. But when he did, when they were able to kind of get on the court and play with each other, it was kind of like give and take. It was like a my turn, your turn thing. It was kind of hard to flow with the offense. And these guys just needed their own team. And when we saw De'Aaron Fox, I think when he went out with injury, towards the latter part of the end of the year, and then we saw kind of Halliburton just out there by himself. You're seeing these 40 balls. You're seeing these crazy assist games. So it's just like, okay, well, we see what this guy can be, when what it would kind of look like, when he does have his own team. We're kind of seeing that in Indy. So I feel like it's kind of a win-win situation. And I think it was kind of just tough for those guys to just play with each other and kind of be able to get the most out of their game, if that makes sense. So I don't think, the Kings, I mean, they got a freaking playoff berth out of it. And, they got 2 All-Stars. So it's not like, oh, we should have kept Halliburton and then this and third. We don't know what would have happened. So Fox is on another level. That's all I gotta say.
And another note on that, man, I just think that when people ask about the trade, I think it's more slander on Sabonis' name. A lot of people didn't watch him in Indiana. You know, him and Miles Turner kind of ran out. Like the example we made with De'Aaron Fox and Halliburton, you know, they just couldn't mesh together. We saw Sabonis try to play the four so they can play them both at the same time. And in the modern NBA, you just can't play two big men. It's just not going to work. Too much small ball. There's too many fours that can spread the floor and shoot the ball. So it kind of worked out for both teams. You know, yeah, you can say Halliburton and Fox could have been really, really good. And, you know, in another world, Toddy, I believe that if we would have kept them, we would have had just as much success because they would have just become flourish. And, you know, they could have arguably been the best backcourt in the world. So it's great to see him. I'm always going to be a Hallie fan, man. He was one of the rookies in the many, many years of our early picks that said, I want to be here. You know, this is where I want to be. I want to be on the team that makes the playoffs. So to him just coming in and want to be in Sacramento showed a lot. So Halliburton's always going to have a special place in my heart. So staying in California, Northern California, and to be particular, Draymond Green chokes out Rudy Gobert, puts him in a headlock, and gets suspension, his 5th NBA suspension. So for all the guys out there and women that don't really understand why this is such a big deal, let me take you down memory lane. 2016, Game 5, punches LeBron in the nuts. Next season, or 2 seasons later in 2018, he's suspended after the altercation with Kevin Durant on the bench. Last season, he was suspended for punching Jordan Poole. Last season, he was suspended for reaching, getting his 16th tech in the season. He tallied 163 technical fouls in his career. So Draymond Green, in my opinion, I believe he got off. I don't think you can go out there and put somebody in a headlock and drag them. I understand it's a rule. I understand you do not touch the other team. You get your guy out of the mix. I understand that. But Draymond Green did not have to do that. But Toddy, before I swing it to you, Shedeur Sanders is hurt and they have the backup quarterback.
Oh, no.
What are your thoughts on Draymond Green's suspension?
But just going tangent about Colorado, I think they were plus 165, and I saw the game was in Washington State, so I was like,
it's in Colorado.
Oh, it's in Colorado. Okay, yeah.
No, it isn't. Never mind. It is in Washington State. Just kidding.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I want to touch that game. It's kind of a wait and see. Probably have to go live and see how the game goes. But kind of to go back to the whole Draymond Green spiel. I don't know, man. It's Draymond. I don't really. The crazy part is I was watching this game live because I had Minnesota in this game. They did end up covering. So it was like, all right, Steph Curry is not going to play. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, damn. Minnesota's probably going to win again. Who's going to score? Who's going to score? And literally, as the score is 0-0, Draymond and Klay Thompson end up getting ejected. I think it kind of started off like on a box out. Klay kind of grabbed Jaden McDaniel's jersey, and it kind of just one thing led to another. And Rudy's, I guess, when Rudy ran up, it seemed like he was trying to separate them, but everyone was like, he had his arm around his neck. He was trying to choke him out. I'm like, that it didn't really look like he was trying to choke him out. And then Draymond comes. He's not even in the picture. He comes out of nowhere, puts him in a full Nelson. And, oh man, it's just I really wanted Draymond to like go on this podcast like after the game. I was hoping that I was gonna get a Draymond podcast because he would go live like after his playoff game. So I was like, maybe he's gonna go live and we're gonna see, and he's gonna get like 100,000 views in the hour. And I don't know, man. It was pretty insane, just the whole thing. But I mean, I don't really expect anything less from Draymond, if that makes sense. I mean, we've seen him. I've seen.
He is who he is.
Is this the worst thing that he's done? I mean, he stepped on.
Bro, hell no. He stepped on Sabonis' chest. Like, and
I
then,
think
like,
this is
punches
the worst
LeBron
thing,
in the nuts. Like, he
I
kicks
feel like
Sabonis. He put Steven Adams in the nuts. Like, I think this is a tie with Sabonis, bro. Like, because, I mean, the other ones are like, you can claim to be accidental, but these two, you could have choked this dude out, could have hurt something in his throat.
Where is Draymond going to step at? Where is he supposed to step?
Not on his chest. You could have put the dude in a cardiac arrest. Like, these are serious injuries that could have been happening because Draymond Green is just trying to We get it, Draymond. You're an enforcer. We get it. You're 6'5". We get it, bro. You have this little man syndrome. And the biggest thing from that incident that I took away is there was a video or a picture of Anthony Edwards and Cat just looking at Rudy get choked out. And that just goes to show that people just don't like Rudy Gobert. His own teammates were like, I'm just going to watch you get choked out here. Like Tony said, the full Nelson. And, if anyone else, I promise you, if that was anybody else, that starts a massive
like
brawl.
if it was Ant.
Oh, bro.
If Ant was swinging in the full Nelson, I think
it's like this.
Wow. I feel like the bench would have been empty.
Oh, bro.
Like they would have had to stop the game damn near.
I'm saying, bro. It's tough that had to be Rudy.
Yeah, I think I just got a report that Shador got hit on his arm or something like that. Mm-hmm. But just to go back to the whole situation, I think Draymond's getting 5 games, and I think he has suspended, or he's losing like almost $800,000. So it's a pretty substantial amount of money that he's losing. I don't know. I just think, when Draymond is kind of just, I guess when Steph doesn't play, they're saying that Draymond's just trying to figure out a way not to play. I wouldn't go to that extent that he's not trying to play, but I mean, there's like a weird stat, like 7 out of the 11 games that Steph doesn't play, he ends up getting ejected.
Fuck this, man.
And there's like a whole like mixtape of Draymond Green, just crazy, like it's like 4 minutes long. So I'm just like, he has a history. So this is not something I would have been like, oh, like if you would have told me like Draymond put a nigga in the headlock before, like I'd be like, oh, okay, like he probably ended up getting ejected, suspended for a couple of games. Like it's Draymond, so Draymond is looking out for his teammates. I don't think anybody in the Warriors locker room was like, Draymond, why'd you put him in the headlock? I think they were just like, thanks for having my back. So I feel like there's 2 sides to each story. I feel like people are kind of torn on the situation. Like, should he have drug him and put him in a headlock? Probably not have dragged him. If you would sort of just, put him in a quick little headlock, maybe that would have kind of just, he still would have got ejected either way. So it's just like, 100%. I don't know. It's just, Steve Kerr was like, he was talking about Rudy, like he had his hand around his neck. And, bro, the Warriors. That was
not true, bro.
The Warriors fans that are defending Draymond, it's just like like I'm trying to figure out, like, how are you
supporting this?
So how are
it's
you
not football.
This?
It's not hockey. It's not an all-out brawl. There's not baseball. They're not rushing.
I don't know how you defend this. Like, hey, this is what he is. But Warrior fans are like, he hit Clay. He had his arm around Clay's neck. Like, they're going like full on like argument. Like, it's a whole like Warriors fans like feel some type of way about it, like real life. So it's very tough.
It's crazy to think that he will spend his 6 games for stepping on Sabonis' chest, choking out Rudy Gobert, and punching his teammate.
Well, you're saying he only got 6 games for all of that?
All of that. For all those incidents, he only gets suspended for 6 games. So I talked about how many times he's been suspended. He has lost $1.26 million in fines. That is people don't make that money in their lifetime. And he's over here just, throwing it away. So I'll never understand it, Draymond. So, Toddy, we're talking about big men. We have to talk about it. Is it time for the Lakers to consider trading Anthony Davis? He is averaging 17 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks in his last game. Is it time for them to decide, or how do they consider trading Anthony Davis?
I wouldn't say that. He's never really in the best condition to start these seasons, with LA for some weird reason. Some guys have to play their way into shape, and I feel like AD is a guy that probably has to play his way into shape. We've seen, monster nights from him kind of already to start the season, at least defensive nights where he's kind of cleaning the glass and blocking shots and just working his way around the basket. So I feel like the Lakers has got to give him a little bit more time. I don't think the Lakers should trade Anthony. I mean, like, what would they realistically be able to get for Anthony Davis? A guy who hasn't really been healthy the majority of, pretty much after the bubble run. He's always kind of hurt all the time. So it's kind of just like, Are you going to be able to get a star back for him?
Oh,
Probably.
easily.
But it's like, who? It's kind of like a gamble. You're betting on Anthony Davis to be healthy, and he hasn't really been healthy. So it's like, okay, we get it. When he's on the floor, he's one of the best big men in the league. But you're gambling on him to be there. Is he going to be in street clothes, as Charles Barkley usually calls them? So
Always dressed.
I think the Lakers should definitely keep him. The crazy thing is who would the Lakers trade him for? Would they just try to get another big man, or would they look for a point guard, a wing? What type of dynamic would they usually get? What usually works with LeBron? Like we've seen him work with D Wade, kind of a 2-3-ish wing player. Chris Bosh, we've seen him, kind of work out with Kyrie Irving, a dynamic ball handler, scorer who can get you 40 points in finals games. So it's kind of like, what would LeBron be? What dynamic is LeBron willing to kind of work with?
And I'm happy you brought up the man, the myth, the legend, LeBron James. At 39 years old, Toddy, he is leading the team at 36 minutes a night, 25 points a night, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. When LeBron James is on the floor, they have an offensive rate of 116, and when he's out, it drops to 90. When he is on the court, opponents score 107 points per average. When he is off, it's 128. So the differential is 46 points. So LeBron James at year 21, at age 49, should not have to do this. So what should they trade AD for? You have to trade him for something. You have to trade him for a guy that you know is going to show up night in and night out. Because like I mentioned with Kevin Durant, you can't play these guys like LeBron we've seen later in his years that he's been just getting hurt. This is not a good sign. This team is literally LeBron and AD and a bunch of role players. They cannot afford for LeBron to go down. So they're going to have to figure something out because him playing this many minutes this early into the season is a bad sign. So we're talking about the Lakers. So we have to talk about Zach LaVine and his potential landing spots. Toddy sent us into the group chat. We talk about the group chat every episode. And Toddy broke the news. Zach LaVine would like to play for the Kings, the Lakers, the Heat, the 76ers, and the Spurs. So, Toddy, what were your initial reactions to his list of landing spots?
Why did he say the Kings first? That's the craziest part. I think it's like he narrowed it down to like top 3, and the top 3 was like Lakers, Sixers, I think Miami was on there. But yeah, Zach LaVine, I'm thinking Chicago is trying to do a fire sale on the whole entire team and kind of just blow it up. Hasn't really been working. They lose again to the Orlando Magic tonight, thanks to Franz Wagner. Last second, and one that he ended up getting. And the night before it was Paulo Banchero hitting the game winner. So I just think that, the Chicago team is probably going to end up just trading all his assets away. That being Zach LaVine, probably DeMar DeRozan gets traded, and Vucevic will probably get traded. I think I saw Caruso was kind of in there trying to get into a package deal with one of the stars. So, just for as far as Zach LaVine landing spots, you'd love to see him play with LeBron. They don't really have a point guardy guy. He's more of a 2 scorer. So it's like he probably would be handling the ball a little bit more. But just another dynamic of a guy who's being able to score. I think he's averaging 21 points a game right now. So, scoring is really nothing for him. Another team I was kind of looking at that's not really on his list would be Indiana. I think Indiana would be pretty solid. Another guy that Halliburton can get the ball to. And, Halliburton's already averaging almost 13 assists a game. So it's like, him and Zach LaVine on on the fast break, and that lob to LaVine would be pretty crazy in Indianapolis. So that's probably a team that you won't hear as much or as frequently right now, as Blue is like, yeah, that's probably a really good destination. But I just think Indiana would be really solid. And, the other teams on his list, Philly would be nice, I think. The 2 scoring guard dynamic with an Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and LaVine would be pretty dynamic. I think so, because I think Max is averaging like 30, which is insane in itself. So more of the load would be taken off of Joel Embiid as far as scoring. By the way, he was the MVP last year, so let's not get that misconstrued. LaVine and Philly would be, I feel like it'd be kind of a little bit of the same thing of already what they have. So that's why I'm not too high on it. But I like him going to Indiana. I think that would be a really dope dynamic. And I think they would have a chance in the East. And I think the Pacers are kind of floating around in that 4, 5, 6 matchup as far as seeding goes on where they're at. But him going to the Lakers would be pretty crazy too. So, the Lakers would be making a move. I saw that the Lakers were also interested in DeMar DeRozan as well. So they might try to make a move at either one of those two.
That'd be great.
So
when I first saw the list, when he put the Lakers on there, like I feel like every time someone wants to get traded, the Lakers are on there. They realistically couldn't make a trade until January. I don't think he's going to last that long, so I think that's not really realistic. And I'm not going to come on here and be a homer and say that the Kings were, because before this news came out, I told Toddy we got to find 2 teams. Come on here with 2 teams that you think he'll be a great fit on. And I think he would be great on the Sixers. I think that Tyrese Maxey, a young emerging star, you give him that leeway to, if you have to struggle, it's okay. We have Zach LaVine and Joel Embiid, because Tyrese Maxey is a young guy. He still has to see a lot of this NBA. You're bringing in 2 all-stars, so to have him kind of have those guys to play alongside, like we saw him flourish last year alongside James Harden and Joel Embiid. So for Tyrese Maxey to be your 3rd best player, that's a hell of a big 3. So I think the 76 would be nice. I don't know what I feel about the Heat. I think the most interesting one from this list was definitely the San Antonio Spurs. Him and Wemby would be fun to watch. It would give the San Antonio Spurs fans hope, but I don't think that really makes him a competitor. That'll make him a contender. But we've been going back and forth in the group chat about this, because I talked to Toddy, came at me hard. He's like, you'd rather Zach LaVine over Bradley Beal? You didn't want Bradley Beal at all. And I'm like, yeah, man, Bradley Beal doesn't play. Like I said earlier, he's played 3 games this season. Zach LaVine's younger and he's on a better contract. I'd rather take Zach LaVine 10 times out of 10 than Bradley Beal. We've seen enough from Bradley Beal, but oh my gosh, Toddy, they just returned a kick. Washington State. Shador came back, threw a touchdown to Travis, and the very next 2 plays, passed the kick. But yeah, so that Zach LaVine is I think his trade, wherever he gets traded to, is going to shake the NBA. So hopefully it's the Kings. I would hate to see him go to the Lakers, but like I said, I'd rather see him in that purple, because him on the Kings, and with me and Ty were going back and forth on what the package would be. If we can keep Herder, Fox is off the table. If we can keep Monk, Herder, I think we go get him. I think anyone else I think no one else. I think the 4 of them are untouchable. And Keegan, of course. Okay. Those four guys, like those 5 guys, are untouchable. If we can keep those guys, those 4, and bring in Zach LaVine, I think the Kings are gonna really be able to shake some shit. So we're talking about the Western Conference, Toddy. So we talked about Anthony Edwards earlier. The Timberwolves have been playing very, very well. Are we a believer that this team could be one of the best in the East, or best in the West? Excuse me.
Absolutely. The way that Anthony Edwards is playing is averaging 28 points. They're 5th.
He's having 27, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 57% true shooting, and 38% from the 5th, or from 3. Excuse me.
Yeah, the way that Anthony Edwards is playing, he's been playing at an MVP level. So I definitely think, and this is a guy who didn't have the Timberwolves in his playoff picture. The Timberwolves can definitely be one of the best teams in the NBA, if not the Western Conference. Like I said earlier, they're the best defensive rated team in the NBA. So defense is going to come a long way, and that, travels into the playoffs. So the game slows down into the playoffs, as you and I both know. And you pretty much need star players to be able to get you over the hump. And Anthony Edwards is definitely a star. He's super young. I did not know he was this young. He's only 22 years old. So For him to take this leap this early, it's kind of like, okay, like the Wolves will be in that playoff contention, one of the top teams in the West. And I think this has kind of been something that a lot of people aren't really talking about. It's that the Timberwolves were one of the teams that gave the Nuggets kind of fits. Now, they lost in 5 games, but every single one of those games, it was like a 5-point difference, 7-point difference. Like the games were very close in that series, and they ended up getting a victory. I believe it was in Game 4. But they have playoff experience, so it's like, okay, how far can they go, and what changes are they willing to make? And I don't think Jaden McDaniels played in that series, if I'm not mistaken. I think he broke his hand.
Yeah, he broke his hand literally I think 2 days before the playoffs.
Yeah, he like punched the wall or something like that, and he ended up breaking his hand, which was kind of dumb. But nevertheless, he's one of their best young players. Naz Reid was out as well, so he's a guy that they ended up re-signing and bringing back. So similar to kind of the Kings, they're kind of running back the same roster that they kind of had last year, with maybe a couple of changes here and there. But for the most part, the roster is pretty much the same. And the Timberwolves, they're one of the better teams in the Western Conference. I mean, numbers don't lie. They're 5th in the West. If Anthony Edwards continues to play the way that he's playing, they can be a top seed in the Western Conference. Point blank, period.
Definitely. And I'm a full believer of this team. And I know Wes listening, and he's going to be like, oh, where's the love in football? Because Wes is all Minnesota. This Timberwolves team, I believe once they made this Rudy Gobert trade, and Cat was be able to flourish at the 4, I thought this team was going to skyrocket. But we saw last year with Cat getting hurt, and they just really weren't able to flourish. They had D'Angelo Russell in there, but once they got Mike Conley in there, they were really able to establish that. I think the biggest thing that was holding this team back was Cat allowing Anthony Edwards to be the guy. Cat was the number 1 pick. Cat's the guy who took them to the playoffs. Cat's been everything to this franchise. Everyone said it's supposed to be the next Kevin Garnett for this franchise. And then they get the number 1 pick, and who comes from Georgia? Anthony Edwards. Like we mentioned, averaging 26 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and shooting 37% from the 3. Him and Karl Towns are playing at a great level. Cat is averaging 21 points and 9 rebounds. Rudy Gobert, like Toddy mentioned, are maybe a too early defensive player of the year favorite. 11 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Naz Reid is having a career year, averaging 14 points and 5 rebounds, shooting 54% from the field and 44% for 3. And like I mentioned, Mike Conley has been that leader that this team needed. I mentioned that they had D'Angelo Russell, and this team's narrative was they were a bunch of young guys, but now you bring in a guy like Mike Conley who hasn't won, but he's been on teams that play at the highest level. So for him to kind of come in, and he's doing his thing, averaging 12 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds. Jaden McDaniels is arguably the best wing defender in the league. Toddy mentioned that they're number 1 in defense. So defense is going to take them a long way. We talked about how important that was to the Rockets' 5-6 game winning streak. So if the Timberwolves can keep this up, I think they have a chance to be a top team in the Western Conference. So staying in the Western Conference, Toddy, we mentioned how the Clippers were winless since adding James Harden. Do you think they can turn it around?
I think it's going to take some time. The Rockets are up 7 over the Clippers as of right now as we speak. Sengun just hit a 3. But I think this I heard James Harden say, like in an interview or something, that he's kind of playing his way into game shape, as we've kind of already. We were talking about Anthony Davis not being in game shape. I think Harden's kind of the same way. Kind of has to play his way into it. It's going to take a couple of games to get all of these guys, Russ, Kawhi, PG, and Harden kind of on the same page. It's kind of tough because if you think about it, each one of those guys has always been like the best player on their team. Like these are MVPs, guys that's won titles, finals MVPs. It's like they're not essentially role players, if that makes sense. They've always usually been the key guy on their team. And it's kind of hard to adjust to be like, all right, like you got to go pass and cut. Like what? Like I'm everybody, spread out, ISO, move to the corner. Like that's what I do. But now you kind of have to be able to have some ball movement. The ball can't really get stick because you have a lot of ball dominant guys, like Russ and Harden and Kawhi. I feel like the guys that can probably play off the ball the most would be Kawhi and PG. They don't really need the ball in their hands necessarily to score, but I feel like Russ and Harden, they thrive off of that. They thrive off of that. And I feel like Harden can be a guy who can catch and shoot because he shoots pretty well from three. I think it's like 45% from three. Like he's a good catch and shoot three ball guy, but he's not a guy that's going to catch and shoot because
you got to put it down, step back, cross the knee.
Yeah, so I feel like just the way how this team is kind of constructed, like if you look at another guy, Bones Highland is a guy who really needs the ball in his hands to score. His minutes are kind of deteriorating. Terrence Mann is another guy. I wouldn't say he's more. They don't really have 3-point shooting. And I feel like they need more of that. They need more 3-point shooting and rebounding because their team is fairly small. I get they have Zubats, but usually it's those 4 guys on the floor and Zubats, and I think they just signed Daniel Tice, and he's playing right now. So I'm not sure how much more help that will be because they need more shooting. So you could trade, to kind of fill this roster out a little bit more, you just need to get more shooting because you got guys that could score the ball in those 4 guys. So it's not like scoring is going to be an issue for them. It's going to just be spacing and ball movement. It's spacing, ball movement, shooting, rebounding. It's kind of what they need.
The essentials of basketball.
Yeah, like the essentials of what a team is. They have a lot of great one-on-one guys that can create their own shot, but they need other guys to be able to do all of the other shit, like rebounding, swing the ball and being able to space the floor. So I feel like that's kind of what, these 4 guys, like Harden's been an MVP. Kawhi he's been a Finals MVP. Russ has been an MVP. Paul George has been in wars with LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's not like these guys aren't good enough. It's just their style of play is so much like it doesn't really mesh with what they need as a team. So I feel like them being winless it's a little alarming because it's like, all right, y'all 4 can't get a win, but it's more like the way how basketball set up, and me and you being basketball guys, it's like how are they going to be able to all work and mesh together because they all kind of do the same thing. So it's more just like they all have to kind of figure out they need to figure out roles and establish roles for each other. And I feel like, Russ kind of saying, hey, I'll come off of the bench is kind of like a step in the right direction. But at the same time, it's like that's like a tenth of what needs to be done to be able for them to be successful. It's so little of a piece for them besides, not Harden. Russ saying he's going to come off of the bench. That's just like a small step of what else needs to happen because it's a lot of changes still have to be made to this roster for them to be solid. Because right now, I think they're out of the playoff race.
The season ended today.
Yeah.
So, Clipper fans, if you're listening, it's time to panic. We talked about this losing streak. They lost to the Nuggets, the Memphis Grizzlies, who is not playing great. They lost to the Mavericks, the Nets, the Knicks, and the Lakers. This team in this past 5 games from the Big 4, James Harden, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal. Kawhi Leonard, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Paul George in the last 5 games has been averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. And Russell Westbrook has been averaging 13 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Like Heidi said, there's a lot of egos in this room. Can Ty Lue turn it around? If anyone was to turn it around, it would have to be Ty Lue. I think he's the right guy for the job. They lost a lot of depth in the trade. I think Robert Cunningham and Nicholas Batum don't get the credit they deserve. Like Toddy mentioned, they don't have a lot of floor spacers. If you're going to have a lot of guys that are ball dominant, like Toddy says, you need a lot of guys to space the floor. If you guys don't have guys to space the floor and you guys have all these guys clogging the paint, it's not really going to help them in the long run. But like Toddy mentioned, James Harden said he's got to play himself back into game shape. So as long as Kawhi and Paul George can stay healthy, I think this team will figure it out. But as of now, it's definitely time to panic as a Los Angeles Clipper fan, because if you're a real Clipper fan, you understand why they went for James Harden. Kawhi and Paul George are on the last year of their contract. You have a new arena opening next year. You have to go all in. You can't afford to go the season like the bubble where you were really, really hot and then you died off in the playoffs. You can't. We've seen this team play so well. And even last year, when Kawhi was playing in the playoffs and they got up, they were playing very, very competitive, and then Kawhi goes down and Tyler didn't even know. So this team just has to be consistent, and I know they need more time to play together. We've seen big teams like this struggle. Like, I know a lot of people forget about it, but LeBron James and the Heat started off really, really bad. So when you have all these egos, you have to figure it out. But they're, like Cody said, Russell Westbrook is taking a step in the right direction. Someone had to raise their hand and say, I'll take a step back. And Russell Westbrook was that guy. And I think him doing that just goes to show that he wants to win, and he's committed to winning. So he has a big ego, former MVP, but he knows the other three guys as of right now are better than him. So something has to give, and he's willing to give it. So moving on, episode 62 of Stats Over Politics. We are your host, Kevin Dent, joined by my guy, Jaevon Toddy. We are moving into our way too early MVP candidates. Toddy, you are on mute. So let me hear your top three too early MVP candidate.
Top three guys so far. I had Jason Tatum down just the way that he's been playing. Celtics have the best record in the league, so I feel like if he wasn't playing at the level they were, or that he is, he wouldn't be at the Celtics wouldn't be where they are right now. Joker, got to put him in there. Just his numbers are insane. I think he's averaging like 27 and like 11 something. Just you could have argued that Joker could have won it for the third time in a row last year, and he's just been on a tear. I put Anthony Edwards on this list just because of what the Timberwolves have kind of been doing. We've mentioned all the stats. They were on a 7-game win streak the first time since 03-04. And the Timberwolves are fifth in the West right now. I get, fifth in the West is, not the best team in the league, but just the way that Anthony Edwards has been playing and just him being so young is just, he's taking that leap that a lot of people would have thought he would have taken in a year or two. I'm trying to think, where would we be if we're going to compare him to what 22-year-olds, like his age group? I think his age group is like LaMelo,
Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton.
So
you said LaMelo already?
Yeah, I said LaMelo already. And LaMelo's been
Desmond Bane was in that draft class, but he's a lot older. But he was a 4-year guy, I believe. But
so I'm just trying to, Wiseman was in that draft class. So I'm just like, okay, the Timberwolves got what they were kind of hoping for. I don't know if they expected him to take this leap early, but yeah, those are my three guys. I got Tatum, Joker, and then I have Anthony Edwards.
So when I made this list, I said, I know Toddy's three. I had a pretty good idea that I knew who you were going to go with, and Jason Tatum was also number one on my list. The Celtics are not the Celtics without Jason Tatum. He's averaging 29 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. So Jason Tatum is showing that he's arguably a top 3 player in the NBA. Secondly on my list, I have Luka Doncic. The Mavericks are a top team in the NBA right now, and no one's talking about him. And Kyrie's been missing games, so it's been all on Luka. He's putting up video game numbers, 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. He is doing his thing.
He wasn't on my MVP list. He was like scoring title. That's kind of what I had Luka at. But they're one of the top teams in the West, so yeah, it makes sense.
And then lastly, the man, Swiper. De'Aaron Fox, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Tonight against the Spurs, finished with a career-high 43 points, 5 of 11 from 3, 7 boards, and 6 assists, and he had 25 points in the second half. We saw last year he was the inaugural clutch player of the year, and it's continuing over into this season. So those are my top 3 MVP candidates. Toddy, we're going to move on to the rookie watch, our NBA rookie watch. So give me two of your rookies that you think have stood out to you that a lot of people maybe not be expecting, because a lot of people are expecting us to come on here and talk about Victor and Chet. So what are the guys that you think have stood out that deserve some more attention as rookies?
I said Asar. There wasn't really any rookies I'd say like this week that were like, oh, this guy is kind of, besides those two guys really. I think Asar has been playing really, really well. He's been defending the rim fairly well. He's been averaging like 2 blocks a game still, and that was on our last NBA podcast that we're talking about. We were kind of like, how long is he going to be able to keep this up? Is this like a real thing? Asar Thompson has been playing out of his mind. I don't know how you can't talk about Chet Holmgren. I mean, I get Wemby. Wemby just had like 28 tonight, so he's the rookie of the year is kind of already in San Antonio. They're just
man, don't do that, because Chet's been hooping too.
They've been waiting for the end of the year, so Chet's been playing really, really well, and I feel like the way that his team is set up, he doesn't have to be the guy that has to score 30 a night. That's already embedded with Shea, and I feel like them having J-Dub there and Giddey, they have a really, really complete team. We talked about, as far as the constraints and setup of the Clippers and how their team is kind of like, it's too redundant. I feel like OKC Thunder is kind of like the exact opposite. And everybody knows their role and they have their own role. And I think it's universally understood that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player on the team, if not one of the best players one of the best players in the world. So it's just like everybody else is kind of falling in line, and they're all really young, but their team is playing really, really solid. And I'm going back to the NBA pregame show. I had OKC I think I had them at a 6 seed, but I had them making the playoffs basically, and they've been I think they're on like a 2-game win streak right now, if I'm not mistaken. But and Chet's been, he's been blocking shots, getting rebounds, knocking down open threes, getting to the basket. Those are probably my top rookies. And Asar has been playing he's been doing a little bit of everything else, getting rebounds, protecting the paint, and being able to assist the ball as well too. Not really too much on the scoring end, I would say, even though he's able to get his buckets here and there. I'd like to see him probably step that up a little bit more, but he's excelling very, very well in pretty much everything else. But those are kind of like my two guys right now.
Definitely. So one of my guys also is Asar Thompson. So Toddy mentioned how he is doing it all and it's not all buckets. There's only one other player to record 30 plus assists, 12 plus steals, 15 plus blocks over their first 8 games, and it is Michael Jeffrey Jordan and Asar Thompson. That is the list. That is the list of people to do that. So he is doing it all over the place, and he is second in the NBA in rebounds. He trails the Joker at 137 total rebounds. He is 6'11".
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Asar Thompson is 6'6". We have Rudy Gobert at 7'1", third in the most in rebounds, and we have DeAndre Ayton at 6'11" with 4th most rebounds. So he is not even a 7-footer or a 6'10" like the rest of these guys, and he's coming out and doing his thing. And I know you've heard a lot of Detroit on our basketball podcast, but Marcus Sasser can ball. He's averaging 11 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds. There is only one other rookie alongside Marcus Sasser to have multiple 20-point games, and as we can all guess, it's Victor Wembanyama. So Marcus Sasser was a late first-round pick for this team, and it's been really interesting to see that he's been kind of taking a lot of Jaden Ivey's minutes. So that's been interesting to see. And the last guy that I had on my list, Jordan Hawkins from UConn. He's had to start these last 5 games, and these last 5 games he's been averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and shooting 46% from 3. So Jordan Hawkins isn't talked about enough, so I wanted to make sure that I came on here and gave you guys, like I mentioned, some guys that aren't named Chet and Victor. So those are some rookies that I thought have been standing out. So Toddy, now that we talked about rookies that deserve a little bit more love, what NBA players what NBA players deserve more attention in your eyes?
I kind of went back and forth on this. It's been. I'm gonna give you just a couple of names. Luka Doncic is a guy that Kevin kind of mentioned earlier in the podcast. He's averaging like 31 points. The Mavericks are, they're on top of I think they're second in the Western Conference right now. Just the way that he's been playing, and a team that we weren't really expecting to be able to, win these close games, because we kind of already knew that they were going to be able to score and, put up 120, 130, 140 points a game. And we didn't know if they would be able to defend and be able to, close those high scoring games out. But the Mavs are sitting at the top of the Western. They're second in the Western Conference right now. But Luka's averaging 31, and they're up there in the standings. And I don't think anyone's really talking about the Mavs like that. Another guy who I don't think anyone's really been talking about, just because they suck, and they play in the Eastern Conference, it's LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball in like his last 6 games has been averaging like 35 points a game and like almost averaging a triple-double. And he's one of those young players that, probably doesn't get him a lot of love because where he's at, and their team is not really that good. Which is why I kind of questioned why he signed the extension when he did. I get it. It's a shit ton of money. So like someone asked me, hey, your extension is going to be $230 million. Where do I sign?
Man, bring the pen to the negotiation table.
So I get it, but I don't think LaMelo finishes his career in Charlotte by any means, but I think, bro, like LaMelo's been on an insane tear, and I think I have his stats for like his last 6 games: 37, 28, 32, 25, 34, 30. So,
that boy,
those are his last 6 games, and I know, Charlotte doesn't play on, the national scale, but I've been watching Charlotte on League Pass. So LaMelo's those 37 points, those 28 points, you'll see it if you actually take the chance to watch Charlotte. They're usually on earlier in the day, like those 4:00 windows, because they're on the East Coast. Those are like the times that they usually play. So those are like the times that like you'll see the Pacers, the Magic, and Charlotte. So LaMelo Ball is another guy that you definitely have to look out for, because that guy he's a hooper.
Definitely. So getting on to some of the players that I believe deserve some more attention. And this guy really deserves a lot of attention because he was considered the guy to have a sophomore slump, and he was really expected to do big things. And that's Scotty Barnes. Yes, he is averaging 21 points per game, 10 rebounds, really 6 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks a game, leading the Raptors in points, blocks, steals, and rebounds. So Scotty Barnes is the Toronto Raptors. I think he deserves a lot more of attention. Like I mentioned, we always hear that they're going to trade Pascal, they're going to trade OG. They're only talking about that because they have a guy like Scotty Barnes. They're not doing that if they don't have a guy like Scotty Barnes. And another guy that I'm not too high about, but he's been fucking killing, Julius Randle. Last 5 games, averaging 25 points, 10 rebounds, shooting 35% from the 3 and 44% from the field. So he is doing that damn thing. And like we've been talking, you've been hearing his name a lot in this podcast, Tyrese Halliburton. He's averaging 25 points, 13 assists, he's shooting 8 threes a night, and he's shooting 53, 44, and 93 as his shooting splits. He is on track to be the only player in NBA history to average 20 and 10 on 50, 40, 90% shooting from the free throw line. And it's crazy because if it wasn't for this in-season tournament, he really wouldn't be on national television. He has yet to play on TNT, Toddy. Like, the world has not seen him. And like you mentioned, there are these earlier games. It's in Indiana. No one wants to watch Indiana. January 30th will be his first game on TNT. And
that's even going back to SAC. He wasn't even on. It's crazy.
So he's finally going to be able to get that recognition because you're going to be able to see him on a worldwide stage and a platform because ESPN came out with a top 25 players under 25, and he was one of the top guys. He just needs the scene. He needs the platform. Tyrese Halliburton is a guy. A lot of people compare him to Steve Nash because he can throw it a lot of dimes and he can score a lot of points. So Tyrese Halliburton is definitely someone who I believe needs a lot more attention alongside Scotty Barnes and Julius Randle. So, last segment here on Stats Over Politics, episode 62 with Kevin Dent and Jaevon Toddy. This is Fact or Cap. I was really hoping to have the full panel here for these ones because this is gutty. We're really going to see the true version of Toddy right here. So, Toddy, fact or cap? Is Trae Young a top 5 NBA point guard?
So I kind of like concocted a list of just guys like top NBA point guards. I know that Trae is up there as far as assists goes. For him leading, I don't know if he leads. I think Halliburton leads the league in assists.
Yeah, Halliburton definitely does.
But I know Trae's probably up there.
Trae's averaging 24 points, 3 rebounds, and 11 assists.
So guys that I had on here, I had Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton. I had Trae Young on here. I had Luka on here too. But I don't know if you want to consider Luka a point guard, is he a point forward?
What Google says.
Yeah. That's what Google says.
You got to go with what Google says.
Tyrese Maxey I had on there, and also had LaMelo Ball on there too.
Hey, you named way more than 5 guys.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, like 8 dudes on here.
You got to give the people what they want, Toddy. This is a fact or fact.
5. My top 5 point guards right now is De'Aaron Fox, Steph Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, Luka Doncic, Trae Young.
Ooh, so this is a fact for you.
I'll say this is a fact. Trae Young. He averaged 27 and 10 last year.
Yes.
So I mean, those are numbers from and I don't even think he made the All-Star team last year. Did he not? Didn't he miss the All-Star game?
He did not.
He missed the All-Star game and he averaged 27 and 10 last year. So I mean, he's averaging what? You said 24 and 10 right now?
Yes, 24 and 10.
Trae Young is a top 5 point guard.
My dad had to let you know, Toddy. This is cap. And I'm going to have to agree. This is cap. Is Trae Young a top 5
who's your
point guard? I'm going to say cap. This is my top 5. I have Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox, and Tyrese Halliburton.
So you had
and guys that I had above Trae Young were guys like Darius Garland.
Oh, don't do that.
LaMelo Ball.
Don't do that.
Dude, I've seen the ice Trae. I'm done with it, man. He shoots the hell out of the ball. So if it takes you 30 shots to score 32 points, are you good? Like, come on. So I'm gonna have to go.
I think I left Luka on there. So yeah,
you left Dame off from my list.
Got you. Yeah, because right now Dame's trying to find.
Also, guys like Jamal Murray.
He's hurt right now, so I get it. And the reason why I left Dame off there is because I get Dame just had 35 last night. So it's he's trying to ingratiate himself into that, new coach, new city, new everything pretty much in Milwaukee. And their team is right now. They're supposed to be, one of the top teams, best duo on paper, this, that, and the third. So they're just trying to kind of figure out themselves, and Dame's kind of trying to figure it out. But I get, Jamal Murray, we'll see. Maybe. I think we had a factor cap. Is Jamal Murray a top 5 point guard? I think we had this after
the finals round.
After the finals, and I think you said no. I think we both said no.
I said no because I mean it just depends because there's so many guys that are on the fence. Like you have the guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have Kyrie Irving of the world.
Yeah, Kyrie.
Hey man, there's a lot of tweeters out there.
Yeah, there is a lot of tweeters. Kyrie is one of my favorite players. I didn't have him on my top 5 list right now.
All right. The time I have been waiting for. Todd, fact or cap? Is Jaylen Brown better than Anthony Edwards?
Wow. Yeah. He caught me.
He said you got me.
You got me. This is the cap. Anthony Edwards is better than Jaylen Brown. Younger from man, imagine Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards on the same team. That would be insane. And I love Jaylen Brown. We went to the finals with him. He's been playing all right. I mean, he hasn't been playing terrible.
So let me give you the numbers. Jaylen Brown's averaging 23 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 36% from the 3. And Anthony Edwards is averaging 26 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 57% shooting, and 37% from 3. So we're comparing apples and tomatoes here. They're both very, very good players. They're separated by 3 points and a rebound.
I think Anthony Edwards is better than Jaylen Brown. I mean, that's just, no bias aside. This is pure basketball. Just if you know basketball, if you watch both of these guys play, be like, oh, he's that guy. He's pretty good too. But I feel like the elements of Anthony Edwards kind of having his own team plays a little bit more.
Huge part to it.
So I feel like if Jaylen Brown had his own and Jason Tatum wasn't the guy in Boston, we might be having a different discussion. But I feel like Jaylen Brown can definitely be the Batman, as people like to say, or the guy or whatever he would be. I think if he had his own team, he'd be probably averaging those numbers that Anthony Edwards is averaging right now. But to answer the question for clip purposes, is Jaylen Brown better than Anthony Edwards? This is a cap. Anthony Edwards is better than Jaylen Brown.
Toddy, I know you were a basketball head, and I knew you were going to put the numbers above your pride, but you surprised me, brother. You surprised me. I thought you were going to come out here and put your fist down and say, Kevin, forget this. I'm going to go Jaylen Brown. Straight bias. I don't even care what you're saying. They are both all-stars. Yeah. But to answer the question, factor cap, is Jaylen Brown better than Anthony Edwards? Like Toddy said, this is a cap. Toddy had Anthony Edwards on his 2 early top 3 MVP candidates for a reason. And can Anthony Edwards win the MVP? Yes. I see all the comparisons of him and Michael Jordan and A, B, C, and D, and I wouldn't go that far, but he is playing at the level he needs to. He just got his signature shoe. He just got his max deal, and we are seeing him flourish. And like Toddy mentioned earlier in the season, he's only 22 years old. We are seeing the best of Anthony Edwards. But I agree with you, Toddy. If the situations were different, I would say Jaylen Brown was the better player because he would have the numbers, he'd have the ball, he'd be the main guy. But because Anthony Edwards is that main guy, he gets that opportunity. But we saw them face off, and Jaylen Brown was able to hold his own. So it's not disrespectful to say cap because Jaylen Brown, like you mentioned, we're talking about 2 apples, and we're separating these 2 teams, these 2 players by 3 points and a steal or an assist, excuse me. So it's really neck and neck. They both shoot the ball very, very well. But it'll be hard to say this is the fact. So I have to go cap. So I do not think Anthony Edwards is better than Jaylen Brown.
All right. Colorado's down 28-7 right now.
So that concludes episode 62 of Stats Over Politics. This is Kevin Dent featuring Jaevon. Toddy, do you have any closing facts or anything that you want to say before we talk to the guys on Monday?
The hotline is 3-0. If you guys will listen to the Monday show, we took Kentucky +6. We took Duke -4 that covered. And then for the Thursday night game, we had the Ravens -3.5. Old Joey B, who is now out for the season. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that on Monday. But going into tomorrow, man, I'm very excited. We got Georgia -10 tomorrow for the early game. And then we got the night game. We got Oregon State over UW in the night game. So it's going to be very exciting. Then for the Monday night game, we have the over. I think it was 46.5. So a lot of points being scored in that game. So just be on the lookout. Be on the lookout, you guys. It's never too low to place those parlays for the college football games tomorrow. But we'll see you on Monday.
And on Monday, Jalen Hurts will conquer his fear We are on the revenge tour on Monday, 8:30 sharp. Right after the game, you will get the live reactions. Kevin might be a little drunk because I take shots for touchdowns, so if it's a shootout, it's going to be a hell of an episode. You guys do not want to miss it. We are shouting you guys out. We are signing off for the night. Thank you guys so much. This is Kevin Denton, Jaevon Toddy. This was episode 62 of Stats Over Politics. We will see you guys on Monday.
Peace.